The answer is neither. The picture statue is actually Zeus, the ancient Greek god that has served as the model for the Christian God, you know, the crazy old man in the sky. And if you notice, he even had the angel in his hand with the wings. So, just a little fun to get things off the ground. I hope you've enjoyed the presentations thus far, and I can promise you they get better. See, the Christ message is truth. Elegant, simple, beautiful. But truth rarely stands alone, and this is no exception. So, if you think we've covered some ground this far, just stick around. But in the first place, I would like to deal with a couple of loose ends that may be hanging around the back of your mind, and you might have some questions about it. And those two terms I'm going to talk about are sin and original sin. Now, we've heard sin described as separation from God. And, you know, people are saying, well, we just can't define God. I can. Well, in part, anyway. Try this. Anything you focus your attention on for longer than 5 seconds is your God. Does that shock you? What do you concentrate most of your time on? Finance? Keeping up with the Joneses? Getting even? Getting ahead in the world? Yeah, I thought so. But of course, with the New Age concept, which is rooted in quantum physics, which says that, the old Newtonian materialism doesn't work anymore. And we have a greater understanding of life and the universe and creation if we concentrate on energy. And of course, we discovered that energy is all there is. And we are part of energy. We are part of the stars and the entire cosmos. Because we're all swimming around in a sea of energy. You know, the spiritual realm is actually all there is, and that the natural world is a subset of that. So we can't physically separate from God. It's a spiritual separation. I just thought of a third thing that we'll throw in too, and that is Antichrist. Now, this is supposed to be some scary figure that rises up out of the east and rules the world, and now we have enough psychopaths ruling the world already. We don't need another one. But in the years between 1945 and 1989, the world was treated to a dramatic theatrical presentation that was known as the Cold War. It was all just an act. I mean, the West didn't like the Soviet bloc because they were communists. Well, we were all in the West, most of us anyway, anti-communist. It wasn't just one guy that was anti-communist. I mean, we were all supposed to be anti-communist. Of course, this didn't stop us from doing student exchanges with him. The Bolshoi Ballet toured the country. In 1969, I attended one of the last performances at the old Madison Square Garden. And you know what it was? The Moscow Circus. But it was a good way to keep everybody on tenterhooks, and remember all the folks that bought bomb shelters and bought emergency food supply. That's still going on today. It's all an act. Don't pay any attention to it. But it kept our attention out there in the world, where reality, the evil of reality, rules. And so, if we understand the Christ teaching, the Christ message is that our strength is within ourselves, the indwelling Father, the metaphor, which symbolizes our connection with all creation, the spirit of the universe. Well, like I said, if you're preoccupied with the things of the world, money, power, prestige, I mean, look at some of these billionaires. They spend $25 million on a palatial mansion that has 40 rooms. How many rooms can you be in at one time? What are the rest of those rooms doing in the meantime? They're just standing empty. How many shoes, how many pairs of shoes can you wear at one time? How many meals can you eat at one time? I hope you're getting the message. But sin is the spiritual separation from the indwelling Father. Because you can't be looking in and out at the same time. And out there, I mean, the world is really, really pretty crazy. And I'd like to call attention to the 7 deadly sins. Not the ones in the Bible. They're pretty hefty too. But I'm thinking about the 7 deadly sins according to Mahatma Gandhi. You ready? Wealth without work. Pleasure without conscience. Knowledge without character. Business without morality. Science without humanity. Worship without sacrifice. And politics without principle. Does that sound familiar? I guess it does. Seems hard to believe that we, the spiritual, strongly spiritual people, are going to finally overcome. But we will. It's just going to take a bit of doing. And this presentation is aimed at helping you to do your part. Now, as far as original sin is concerned, it's not about talking snakes and people eating apples from forbidden trees. It's about the sin of origin. like when babies come into the world? Are they thinking about spiritual matters? Hell no. They're learning how to walk and how to crawl around the floor and get into stuff and discover the world, which, by the way, is ruled by evil, the evil of reality. And naturally, small children are going to be preoccupied with the world and how it works and what feels good and what doesn't feel good and what hurts and what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and don't grab the pot handle off of the stove, and don't cross the street without holding mommy's hand, and all that stuff. And as I said, the reality is evil, but it's not bad. It's only bad if you fall for it. So don't buy that bridge back east. Step back from that surefire deal that can't miss. And when you meet Miss Wonderful, the one you're ready to spend your whole life with, you might just slow down and take it a little easier. But anyway, now in the allusion to the Gospel according to Walt Disney and Carlo Lorenzoni, Pinocchio, there's another metaphor that I want to call attention to. And it makes the point very, very clearly. And that is that Pinocchio started out as a creature of the world, a marionette. Now, he didn't have any strings, but the symbolism is that of the marionette. That's what organized religion wants to make you into, a marionette. Whether it's religion or politics, there's always somebody up here pulling the strings, jerking you this way or that way. How many people remember the Cold War? Really? You know, that was 22 years ago. Was it 24 years ago that that system collapsed, and now we're dealing with more grief and more secrecy and more fear. When are we going to wake up and realize it's all a sham? But the Father in me and you, who does the work, well, I'm still a puppet because I don't have any strength of my own. But I'd rather be a hand puppet with all the strength inside. I hope that wasn't too sorry an analogy. But anyway, I have an interesting new character to introduce you to, and I'd like you to take a minute out to say hello. Okay? That was the Mythological Hero. The central character in a body of information that is worldwide and is often considered to be fiction. But a lot of it is just very, very dimly recalled history. Zeus, by the way, was an actual person, a lord of the world, and he had a family. And they all lived on Mount Olympus, and his children, the lesser gods, actually took sides in the Trojan War, as reported by Homer. And that Zeus had some powers that deserve recognition in terms of being a lord, because while the war was going on, the Trojan War, Zeus made a journey to Ethiopia, which is pretty far away, and returned back to Olympus all in 12 days. That must have really had some means of getting around in order to do that, because normally what we think of by modes of travel in those days, well, that would have been 2 weeks just getting there. So there's a lot of questions that require answers, and we'll find them. But just as the wise ones preserve the truth and protect it from the tampering of fools by creating fiction. In the case of Pinocchio, it's a little children's story. In the case of mythology, why, we take a step forward and introduce the mythological hero, the central character. And in all these tales, the mythological hero goes through several phases on his way to fulfillment. And it's a romance because the idea is that it's high adventure and it has a happy ending. If you do it right, I suppose. Well, just who is this mythological hero? It's you. Oh, could be. If you have what it takes. Now, the journey of the Christ journey, which is a journey, is described by the quest of the mythological hero. And I'll show you that. Because the mythological hero goes through 4 phases: king, warrior, lover, and sorcerer. And you say, king already? Well, not a real king. Not really. See, because king is also a metaphor. And it stands for responsibility. Oh, there's 2 kinds of people you find on the dark side, and those are people who keep fouling up, and those who are always being fouled up. Well, for the former, those who foul up, there's hope, because they can change. Find out, well, what am I doing wrong? Why am I getting all these bad consequences? And the other, who are continually being victimized, to kind of change their role and stop being the victim, grab the reins, become a king, put that crown on your head, and take responsibility for everything that goes on in your life. Because the eminent biological and genetic researcher, Dr. Bruce Lipton, tells us that we operate most of the time with the back of our brain, which is the dumb part. It's the automatic part that like walking, tying your shoelaces, making coffee, whatever it is, that you know how to do. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to focus. You just do it automatically. And if you have a rotten disposition and you get on people's nerves, it's so subconscious you don't even realize what you're doing. But if life starts dishing out some real pain and real suffering, and it gets so bad that you can't stand it anymore, then you're ready to mount that horse and ride off to a new adventure. And of course, the kingship by itself is pretty useless, because the kingdom that you find yourself ruling is all scattered, shattered, battered, busted, burning. It's destroyed, pretty much. And this is the point at which you start putting one stone on top of the other and start rebuilding with the pieces. Not all the pieces, because you have to get rid of those pieces that just don't work anymore. The spoiled and damaged pieces. And that's where the warrior comes in. You see, because the warrior has to attack, has to fight off what? Temptation. Remember? We have the higher aspiring self and the lower old Adam self. And this new knight, the mythological hero, has got to take old Adam and give him a good sound thrashing, because we don't need that kind of attitude. We don't need that kind of thinking. We don't need that kind of behavior anymore. And with each hoofbeat, the warrior emerges more and more into the sunlight and becomes the lover. And he seeks common cause with his fellows. He does good, even when nobody's watching. He does the next right thing, and if he doesn't know what the next right thing is, he does the next thing right. Because it's right. There was a model of spirituality in the person of a French monk from the 17th century. His name was Brother Lawrence. And if you would like to read his correspondence and records of his conversations, they are contained in a book called The Practice of the Presence of God. And he worked in a monastery, and he had the worst job in the place. And he scrubbed floors and scoured pots and just did ordinary scullery work. But he said that he did everything for the love of God. Now, for the longest time, I had an idea what that meant, and that is to earn the love of some collective figment of the imagination that lives in the sky. But that's not it. Ever done a good turn for someone? Ever got out of yourself and treated someone the way you wanted to be treated yourself? Experienced the joy that comes from knowing that you didn't hurt someone else, made things a little easier for someone else, or maybe even got a chance to be a redeemer, spend time with a troubled soul and help them through a critical period. What happens after that? You're filled with such joy, and it's an inside job. That's the love of God. A fellow who was working with me in those early days when I was recovering from the disease of alcoholism, and things weren't going very right. He said, God is just emptying your cup to fill it from himself. Wow. So, it's a journey. And the central figure, the mythological hero, is you if you want the job. And if you don't, I'll tell you what's in store for you. You're going to continue to live in hell. Because that's where you are. Here's a simple truth. Try this on. Try to deny it if you can. If you're not happy, you're doing something wrong. So take up your lance, take up your shield, get on your horse, and set out on this wonderful adventure. And at the end of the line, you'll find peace and serenity in this turbulent, chaotic world. You'll be one of those people you envied, who can keep their head while everybody else around them is losing theirs. Is that a good case? Do you think I presented a good case that time? I don't know. But I'm never one to settle for second best or good enough, because good enough is never good enough. And I would like to straighten out another business here. Remember the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? There's only one horseman. And to understand this, why, we'll just skip over to Revelation chapter 6, in the book that's bound by the 7 seals. But for now, we'll only concern ourselves with the first 4. And remember, John is at this conclave in the city of heaven, and the Supreme Lord, the one that tells the other, reigns over the other 24 and the whole population, is holding the book that's written on the inside and outside and bound by the 7 seals. And here's a question that a lot of people miss. And it's the question worded as follows. What man is fit to open the book that is bound by the 7 seals? And what John saw, probably an animation or some electronic projection, he sees the Agnus Dei, the Lamb of God. Now we'll talk about the Good Shepherd being sheep at some other time, because it's really not a very positive simile. Because sheep, well, that's what people are becoming, and the only value of a sheep is the wool, and you have to shear them to get it. And look at how the American middle class is disappearing. They act like sheep, and they're getting sheared. Well, the Lamb of God represents the newest minted Christ, the one who has had the final judgment, the one whose life has fallen to such despair and such degradation and such hopelessness that he or she is willing to turn away from the evil of the world and embark upon a new path, the path of the mythological hero. So John says, well, here's this Lamb of God who opens the first seal. Well, in verse 2, John says, and I saw, and behold, a white horse. And he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth a-conquering and to conquer. Well, it was the white horse, and white is a symbol of purity. And he was given a crown, so that means he's a king, all right. Got that crown on his head. And he has a bow. Not the kind that how the little girls wear in their hair, but this kind, the kind you shoot things with. Well, what a bow shoots is arrows. And the Latin word for arrow is sagitta. And it's the root word from which are derived the words sage, which means wise, sagacity, wisdom. So this king is going to go riding off to conquer, a conquering and to conquer. And the question is, what? Well, John watches, and here's the second seal. And the Lamb now opens the second seal. And there went out another horse that was red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the world, and that they should kill one another. And there was given him a great sword. Well, that's a whole mouthful of words there. Lots of room for evil to work. And of course, this deals with interpretations and the sad fact that language is not always the best communicator. Well, the horse is red because red is the color of courage. The sword that he has, the big sword, well, that's the symbol of truth. And he goes out to take peace from the earth. What does that mean? to take peace from the earth, most pinheads and people who aren't too good at thinking believe that it means bringing war. And some of these idiots are actually teaching the easily convinced. But what does it mean to take peace from the earth? To take pleasure from the earth? Doesn't mean to bring pain. It means to use the sword of truth and kill off that old Adam that gives you such a rotten attitude that people don't like you. In fact, some people hate you and don't spare any words or gestures letting you know it. Because all, as Dr. Lipton said about working with the back part of your brain, it's 70% of it is all fear. Come around to the front. Be in the here and now. Right here, right now. And you'll find that there's never anything to fear. Brother Lawrence said when he saw temptation approaching, and temptation just doesn't mean with sex or like that, any temptation that will rouse the old Adam. Anything that might allow him to be jealous, fearful, angry, hate, any of those things. He said he allows it to advance. And then in the moment, he turns inward. And the problem goes away. Didn't Joshua, Master Joshua, the great teacher who for some reason is called Jesus, I don't know, didn't he say, resist not evil? Because he knew it's all an act, it's all make-believe. It's not real. Oh, wait a minute, it is real, it's not true. So you see, this second writer is just the mythological hero in the second phase, the warrior. And then, well, let's see. And John said, when he had opened the third seal, I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he sat upon him, had a pair of balances in his hand, like those scales of justice, Well, now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, the black horse is the color of truth. Well, and that's because black is the absence of color. Oh, the bright color that reality paints truth to make it seem a lot better than it really is. And hey, maybe that bridge back east, I can collect tolls with it or something like that. Or darker colors that make it seem worse than it really is. But the balance means equanimity. Neither being tempted in one direction or the other, but maintaining a straight, true course. And he's the honest man that can't be cheated. He's the man you can't fool. He's the man who watches an amusement. The theatrical presentations of the real world. And just goes on about his way in peace and harmony, in tune with the spirit of creation. Because creation is not an event. It's a process. And creation goes on every instant. And it's evolution. Evolution and creation are the same thing. Because the only constant anywhere, everywhere, is change. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. An endless chain of cause and effect. And if you try to figure out which came first, well, there's the chicken and the egg problem again. Neither. The universe has always existed, and it always will. And it's an endless cycle of creation and recreation, assimilation, separation, and reunification. It's about information, affirmation, confirmation. It's learning the truth. And if you learn the truth will set you free. Oh, and then the fourth seal, that's the pale horse. And him who sat on him, his name was Death. And hell followed with him. Well, the death they're talking about is the spiritual death. You know, the kind that the Christ is getting away from, the mythological hero is overcoming. Yeah. Well, of course, the horse is pale because he's fading back. And he'll continue to fade back as long as you're a sorcerer. The fourth house of the mythological hero. And I like what Wayne Dyer calls the sorcerer. He who is always in touch with his source. Thank you for dropping by. Hope you got something out of this. See the connections? That's what truth is all about. No mystery. It's all simple. Just need to figure it out. Once you have it figured out, then you are on the road to peace, order, harmony, and all the goodness, truth, and beauty that is out there waiting for you in heaven, which is a state of mind. And there's some of us that are already there. So, but there's a caution. If you've heard me and accept everything I've told you so far, then you have no more excuses. So on that note, I'll say thanks for stopping by. Love you all. And you do what I'm going to do. I want you to do what I'm going to do. And I'm going to have the best day ever. And until next time, take care of yourself. So long.